Hey, how's it going? I am going to read you some cards, but first look at my signs. Hi. So, I pulled, let me see here, a few cards. I kind of, well, I'm not sure. I pulled 4, okay? But I got some new decks, so I'm going to introduce a couple of other cards from a whole other deck. So, from the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit deck, I got the Phoenix card. Got Fiery Phoenix on there. And from the Shaman's Dream Oracle deck, I pulled the number 36 card, Lost in Space. And the title is Needing Direction. So it's got another one of those sort of bird people on there. Oh, my vision is not... Oh, I'm sorry about that. Sorry for that look at my brain. She kind of looks like a flapper to me, too. Like one of those Art Deco paintings. Like there was a million of Coca-Cola ad ones with bowl cut models or pixie cut. I don't know. My mom liked to collect those for some reason. Anyway, that's sort of what it reminds me of. You know, like well, the clothes are not like that, but anyway, I don't want to get stuck on that. And so she's well, her clothes and hair upon further inspection seem to actually be feathers, but she's having some influence on the world. And well, she's got a big bright bolus on top of her head. So I usually think that's some sort of spirit orb energy happening thing, but check out her hair. It's feathers. And her clothes. Those are not wrinkled fabric, that's feathers. More feathers. And the other deck, the one that I'm gonna use today, you know, I opened it up and I was shuffling it and I didn't take time to get to know it or anything. I was just checking it out and looking at it because well, never mind. It is I didn't read closely enough on like what exactly I was getting for I got 2 new decks, and for either of them I'm gonna blame me, but actually I found it difficult to see exactly, like they don't give you like the full-on description. Like if you have Amazon Prime and you want to look at something and you read the description and it says more, but then you click more and there's no more. Like you can look all over the place. I have yet to find the more, and I've had Amazon Prime pretty much since they started it, so now I'm sidetracked. But anyway, and not that I'm unhappy with either deck, though, don't get me wrong. So I got this Angel Number Oracle cards deck, and there's more of that sort of angel looking like something else kind of situation. Like this is fully a plant on here. Like this looks like kale or something. And then just more like she's standing in a salad, but the she I'm referring to is this endive lady or insect lady or, you know, angel. I don't know. It's angel number deck. So I'm gonna say that's an angel, but it's something I don't remember where I heard this. I feel pretty sure it was something I was listening to, and the person was saying that trees are angels. So you do with that whatever you will. But anyway, I have this new deck in my hand. Like I said, I haven't like sat with it or, run it through incense or done anything to personalize it. But I did think, well, what would I even pull them on? And I literally thought, same thing as usual, how we treat each other. And these two flew out. So, and this is like the first time I'm looking at them, but I'll look at them in the order that I got them yesterday. So the numbers are speaking to me just because of personal stuff recently. Nothing big, just like a tiny little association to remind me, like, hey, this. So the first one I pulled was 0505. And it says, unexpected shift, divine intervention, sudden challenges, love, pleasant surprises, gut feeling. Ay, ay, ay. This number, I'm reading from the card now. Ay, ay, ay. This number serves as a gentle nudge to pursue whatever interests you most. It's possible that something could rock your boat, but you'll end up exactly where you belong, which could be in somebody's arms. Ooh, they forgot a space on here. I wonder if that makes it a collector's item. Like a space between words. Which could be in somebody's arms, your dream job, or abroad, etc. Whatever you like, it says. I'm gonna do the other one too and then talk about them. So the second card is 1221, and it's like a palindrome, isn't it? Which is funny because I was talking to myself, but I was fully talking about palindromes yesterday. So, hey, I feel like every little thing, no matter how silly or stupid, is something. Something to reflect on, something to notice, something with meaning. And I think if people hear you say something like that, they just think, oh, how annoying. And I get it, because I thought that way too. Once upon a time, like about synchronicities, because I heard somewhere and it sounded good, it like totally resonates with me. But to pay attention to synchronicities or coincidences, however you want to call it, but that kind of thing, pay attention to it. It'll help you along your journey with your shift, your unexpected shift. Although I'm talking about a deliberate one. But an unexpected shift did occur. I guess that's what I'm talking about. Is that it went from being like, who can pay attention to all of that? Like, and then I'm supposed to like think about it too. I'm hearing myself now and thinking, that's ridiculous. What a dork. Like, what are you saying? Of course you can. So with that attitude, I kind of went forward with the idea. But that sounded weird, forward. So I went forward with the idea, and it was too much of a pain, too much trouble to pay attention to each and every little coincidence that happened or synchronicity. But I found myself noticing them anyway. Like, it's like just because I was talking about it to myself, somewhere inside that I wasn't really aware of, I decided, oh yes, I will pay attention to that. So I guess it can be done. But it just became great fun noticing them, because the things that like this is attached to, like this is the number on here was like a password issue that I had, because I hate them. I hate coming up with them. I hate remembering them. Well, anyway, and that was like part of a number that that was the part of the password that I eventually came up with, and I'm laughing because before the card came along, I was just laughing at it because it looked like oh. That may mean something to you, it may not. It doesn't matter. It just made sense to me in a way that just kind of cracked me up. And I think that's kind of the point of paying attention to it, because you might get something deeper out of it, but then something about it is also fun. Like I'm all selling it, do what you want. But anyway, you may come across the same suggestion to pay attention to it, and I'm just saying, I get it if it sounds like, why? But eventually it became something fun, and sometimes more. So this number I have a completely other association with, and beside the palindrome thing. And so I'm going to read it. Taking initiative. Change, optimism, joy. Finding joy in synchronicities. Communication. Messages. Good news. Expression. High vibes. Work with what you have, and it will get you places. Count your blessing, and count that blessing. Just the one. I think it... I'm sorry, I don't mean to pick on the... I don't mean to edit, but I can't help it. Anyway, so count your blessing and acknowledge your dear ones. You will find inspiration and figure out a way forward. You might also be getting some good news soon. Okay, I like it. So, the cards I pull, and like with the angel ones, like I said, my sort of question, I guess, or focus for the card pull was how we treat each other. It's kind of like always the same with me, but all the time there's new ways to look at it. So I looked at The Jinx Part 2, and that is a documentary that it came out on HBO. And it was about real estate developer family scion Robert Durst. So the Durst family, until Robert Durst, I had never heard of that name except for the Limp Bizkit guy, and I had no idea about their real estate holdings. And I'm just mentioning this because the Durst family is apparently everything that like the Trump family wants to present themselves as, but the Trump family is like all gold everything, but it's like the gold wrapped around your chocolate that you get sometimes. Except the gold with him, it's not actually gold, and the filling's not chocolate. So, but the Durst family, I find interesting because one of them, well, actually, I think it was a New York paper clipping that was shown and voiced over, talking about. Oh, actually, it might have been let me just say it. It just kind of talked up how great the Durst family was and how well known they were for their real estate and their holdings in New York and elsewhere. And I'm like, really? Never heard of you? But they have stuff under names other than Durst. So, but I wouldn't have heard of it because I'm not ever in the market to buy real estate. The only reason I pay attention to that kind of thing is when like a Robert Durst comes along or a Trump comes along. Otherwise, those people just have no reason to enter my attention, and vice versa. No shade, I don't care. Actually, good. The less those people know about me, the better. So, the Jinx. I have been thinking about how Well, you know how I say a lot, like, people create their own realities. The wealthy and rich, and however you want to define them, although I guess rich and wealthy in those circles are two different things. And new rich and old rich, like, there's a whole social order to being freaking rich, like, extra to just the regular social order of being a human American. It's like a whole stratosphere of otherness. Like, we even prejudice each other when we get to the same levels or near the same levels, or like, we still gotta make a difference. Like, oh, well, you're in still, but whatever. That's like the least thing about them that I find concerning. But Durst, so the reason why they made a documentary about him is not so much about him being rich and privileged and a disgusting human being, kind of charming maybe, but when you get to know him, disgusting. And geez, I could describe Trump the same way. It's their class, I guess, although I feel like the Durst would be the higher of the hierarchy there. But Durst is famous for being a suspected serial murderer, and then in the course of filming about from the guy himself, his perspectives on being the accused murderer and the disappeared women and dead people that just seem to crop up around him, and they were able to show the course of history, from like where he was the guy that was married to a woman that he had been fighting with, arguing with, that disappeared, and it sounded like she was actually not also rich. I believe she came from a way lower income. Like, I think her father's in the video, and I think he's like a manager at Home Depot, so completely other stratospheres of wealth. And it sounds like that was interfering with things, but it also sounds like the man was kind of hard to live with anyway. And so that was the first disappearance that we know of another human around that guy. And then he had a friend in California, and they were going to question her, the police, and New York was going to come question him about that, or question his friends, investigate basically the disappearance, and ask this friend of his, Susan Berman, who I guess she was the daughter of Las Vegas gangsters, but it didn't help her, I guess, and because she was living like a pauper, but she still was in those wealthy sort of echelons, I guess you could say, and she was friends with Durst, and I guess close friends, and he must have confided something in her, because when the investigators were going to go to Los Angeles from New York, one of them was Janine Pirro. I guess she was a prosecutor at the time. Wow. Different person today, I'll tell you that. Well, not to get sidetracked, but anyway, dude was a murderer, basically, or he's an accused murderer, because I'm not sure. Well, in the case of the next person around him, his neighbor in Houston, I don't know he liked Texas for some reason, which, weird. When he comes from where he came from, I don't know, but there's lots of really rich people in Texas too, so, what do I know? Like I said, I'm not in that level of stratosphere. Don't really, you can have it. But he was sort of hiding out. He was going around in drag. They adapted his story on Law and Order, I think, a couple of different times, They just didn't come out and say that it was him that they were talking about, but they just didn't say his name, but they pretty much used his story. So I mean, it was out there that, like, this privileged guy is out apparently just murdering people, and it's not even that they're getting in the way of some big political thing or anything like that. It seems like he just, like, got mad at them, except for the one in Los Angeles, the gangster's daughter, Susan Berman. He was afraid that whatever he had confided in her, like, this is the contention of everyone, and I guess I can go along with it with the information that I was presented, but it does seem like he, like, tried to be surreptitious about leaving New York and doing things that were kind of totally incriminating, like thinking he was slick, and it's just like, dude, everything you're doing is making it look bad for you. I can't even conceive of what he must have been thinking, knowing that he was already under suspicion and, like, trying to travel to the location of the soon-to-be dead person, to be there at the time when, oh, I guess you're not supposed to say that, but I mean, he was there at the time, like, it was traceable, and he tried to say that he didn't have time to do it, but it's like, I didn't even have to time it out. I know I could drive from LA to San Francisco and back in 24 hours. Like, he just wasn't slick. And it's funny that, well, anyway, Berman ended up being terminated, so she couldn't testify against him, and it just, I don't think it's a coincidence that he was there at the same time. And then the guy in Texas that was his neighbor, he's hiding out, Durst, or he thinks he is, he's trying to be in drag, but I guess he didn't do anything more than just put on a wig and some women's clothes, so he didn't have, like, a guy in drag thing. Like, I don't know if he wore makeup or whatever, but somebody described him as an ugly woman. So if he walked the way he walks as a man, then he would have been what I would call a schlump. So not attractive in a woman, kind of like, dude, are you sad in a man? Like, why are you schlumping? But I guess it was, like, pretty obvious that he was not a woman. But anyway, he had this neighbor, and then he was also pretending to be a deaf mute, or not a deaf mute, just a mute, I think. Yeah, just a mute. And he had a neighbor across the hall, a fellow. Well, that guy, I guess, was sort of like a low-life criminal, to use a defining term, and just an older guy, so probably not really up to much of anything, but slowly, just poor, and I don't know. But they sort of, like, found common ground and would hang out and talk, and apparently, like, even Durst said the dude knew it wasn't a woman, and so it was uncomfortable for Durst, and then he just got tired of it and stopped being in drag anymore. And then shortly thereafter, the neighbor turns up, in pieces, actually, floating in a bay, and there's, like, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know that the cops had, but, since this documentarian guy could get certain information, and then straight from the horse's mouth stuff, like, I don't want to say confession, but it kind of ended up that way. Like, I don't even know what Durst thought he was doing, except that everything he did, as far as was portrayed in that documentary, I thought, he wants to get caught. Because he, I remember one time it was on the news when he got caught after the Texas thing. Dude's a multi-millionaire. He goes into a supermarket and shoplifts a sandwich. And he said he even saw 2 security people, like, close enough to see him do it from what it sounded like he was saying. The point of relating all of that is just that there was one point that made it crystal clear how the people from, like, his family and that sort of social layer think about themselves in relation to society, the rest of society. They are very entitled, they're very privileged. Like, I know that guy knew he had to pay for it. He knew he was in a store, so why don't I forget what he said exactly about it, like why he did it, but it was just it was nonsense. It was like he knew he had to pay for it, or he knew they knew he could pay for it, or something like that, and he just did it anyway. It just didn't connect with, it didn't make sense. But he just felt like he could do it, and he also just felt like a lot of people, and they're not all rich, but it's like a disease. It's like a catching disease. Life is so cheap. You're in my way. I don't like what you're doing. I don't like what you're saying. I'm just gonna get rid of you. That is terribly inconsiderate of the other people. One thing I notice about the really rich people, though, is that they want to make money off the public, and yet it seems like they view the public with disgust as like a lower order of being. And I feel like they talk about, like, the poors as like, oh, they're fat, oh, they like cheap crap, and you know, they eat bad food, and they don't care about themselves, and they're not smart. And it's like, we get all of our clothes and food from you people, so like, then give us better food and clothes then. There's a cooperation where if a corporation has a surplus of something, they can talk to one of their other buddies, or buddies that are on boards of other companies, or, you know, they might own the company outright, but say, hey, I have a surplus of this stuff and I need to sell it. Can you buy it off me and use it to sell in some product of yours? That happened with bacon. It probably would have been early 2000s. So that kind of thing can go on, but that is, I think, the reason why we have corn syrup that a lot of us just don't want in our food. So much of it that it's like inescapable almost. You don't want processed white sugar, because that's also in a lot of our food, and it's terrible for us, and it's as addicting as cigarettes or drugs, I guess. Oh, I guess you're not supposed to say that word either. I don't understand the censorship when all of the things you're not supposed to say are just right out there in the world, happening in front of you. It seems silly. Like, I don't want to delude myself, and I don't know why you think the censoring is making us, like, it's making it not happen, making it not be. Whatever. But what I'm getting at is that it seems like the long-term goal is to get more money and more material possessions, and to do that, they use their corporations like it's a game with each other. Like, they shake each other's hands, or they're behind each other's backs, or they're stealing intellectual property, or there's just like all of these threads going through it, and I feel like they enjoy it, you know. But getting back to the stuff, the surplus stuff, for example, or medicines, like the the OxyContin debacle with the, what was that family? I can never remember when I'm trying to talk about them, which is fine. It's enough. You can find out for yourself. But, and like, the opioid crisis is still going on. I think that drug is still fully on the market, but so many people went along with just like pushing it onto people and not being truthful about the effects of it and the addictive nature of it, which is like, I think it's funny that they're trying to sell an opiate as not acting like an opiate. An opiate, I think, is going to do what opiates do, which is, you know, if you take it long enough, make you dependent on it, and that usually leads to bad things. But that's out in the world, out in the news, so I don't need to go on about it. But knowing that you have this thing that people need and pushing it so hard, knowing what it does and not caring what it does to the population that you're selling it to, that you need, by the way, to you need people to sell stuff to. So basically, why kill them off with drugs? Why kill them off with bad food? And then expect us to work. It's like treating people like a token in a game and something that you don't care what happens to because you think it's like an object that has no feelings like yours or can't think like you do or something. So, excuse me for 1 second. I think we can do better. And I feel like, notice how the body of land looks an awful lot like the United States right there. Florida sticking off there. So I try to confine what I'm talking about to the United States. So I think I pretty much covered that here. But the subtitle on this card is Needing Direction. And it's interesting. We have a lot of energies coming in from other species out in space. I know how crazy that sounds, and I don't care. I love it, and I don't just believe it's true, I just know it's true. And on a level, so does everyone. But for whatever reason in our human development, we are open to believing in that or thinking that it could be a thing, even just the idea, or we're not, and that's okay. It takes all kinds. So I don't know if this is necessarily an alien, extraterrestrial being, other than the fact that it's definitely not from here. It's too big. It could be an angel. I know there's passages in the Bible that talk about angels bigger than mountains, and I don't remember the phrase exactly, but I believe one also talks about how there are ones bigger than the world itself. Which, you know, remember I said, like, somebody said that the angels were trees, like basically inside the tree is the angel entity presence. I'm not even sure how to define that, but astrologers, some of them will refer to like Mars as a he or Venus as a she, as if it has its own personage. And that is a thing that I've also heard, but I think it's like part of an evolution process and part of a shifting type deal, because I don't think the shift that we're having now is the only one that ever has or will happen. But everything is experiencing it in the whole universe. Everything. Like everything. There's no, like some people will say, well, if God created everything, did he also create aliens? Well, what are you saying? Everything. So it's like that. I mean, if it's everything, then it's everything. So apparently beings can evolve into a planet. Don't ask me the mechanics of it. They didn't say. I don't know. It's, moving on. And I think that, like I said, I think this is some sort of spirit energy type thing, being, perhaps intelligence. I'll go with that. It may be aiding her, powering her, or maybe it like comes up out of her. I don't know. And then she's blowing on the planet as if, I don't know, fairy dust is the first thing that comes to mind. But if that works, hey, what could be wrong with that, actually? I'm thinking in a positive way, fairy sparkles, joy and happiness and love of just being alive. We definitely could use more of that. So, extraterrestrials also, because of the connection that we all have that we're not so aware of as earthlings, the disbelievement factor is so high it could barely get in. Like those stories of like people stopping believing in the Easter Bunny and the Easter Bunny disappearing. I feel like it's that level of whatever that could be called. But evidently there's a lot of species out there that are like rooting for us in the world, because the situation in the United States has something like it going on all over the world with different governments. And in like an abstract way, it's about I feel like saving democracies, because that's important. And the thing about a democracy that's done right, if not totally infiltrated by people that can manipulate systems like super rich people and get around checks and balances that are in governments, and it interferes with the workings of democracy. And that is simply, it just came to mind that it's just as simple as they don't want to share everything they have. I don't care what paper they signed or what currency they passed to attain it. No one really owns anything. The validity of money itself is like a fever dream. So here's the thing, though. This is like watching the Jinx is so interesting and exciting, kind of. Like, not the part where he's homicidal, but or not like the part of the action of the doing the homicidal, but the personality that this person became or was born as, or I don't know. It sounds like with him there was a combination of factors where he could have not been the homicidal guy, and things for whatever reason needed to go that way. And that's the thing, like, bad things happen all of the time. Bad people happen to other people, or how we term them. But really, in our roles here in the Matrix, I'm just going to use that term. I don't know if it's quite accurate for what I want to say, but people can access it. So in the Matrix, we're just here doing things like, working out our karma, which I'm not going to go into right now, but basically we're here to do things that we are predetermined to come and do. And sometimes we have to come more than once because we don't complete the job. There could be a lot of reasons why that would happen, and you could liken it to real life situations where you perhaps have a goal and you have to save, or you have to do or not do certain things and make some sacrifices and like maintain a type of discipline. You have to do some things for a certain reason, and it's not always a straight line, so, and we're here to see all of this stuff going on, to take part in it sometimes and be affected by it, even from a distance, emotionally, or be inspired, or inspired to like go do something to make a change for the better for people. And that's like a good thing that we would want to aspire to. And there's also the things that we generally collectively agree that are not good and not great, and things that that become hidden or lied about, so that you don't know the truth of the situation, or it hides the authenticity of the individual, like a Robert Durst, who would seem like a nice enough guy, although to me he didn't at all. I can't say for sure whether my thinking is biased, or my feeling really is biased by what I know about his history that leads me to think that, yeah, he was a homicidal guy. I think he was unpleasant. I don't know if I would have immediately jumped to the fact that he would be homicidal, but we hide things about ourselves. Sometimes we don't hide them so well. Sometimes we think we're slick and we're not. Sometimes we're unpleasant and other people don't realize what that unpleasantness, the depth of the level that could get to. But what if for whatever reason anyone is any way and does anything, it's all part of like what everyone is doing on the Matrix. You may not be able to attach a string to one end of someone to anyone else. It might unravel the whole string to touch all of the people that it would need to touch to make the connection, to make whatever has to happen. It's like a long plan. It's a long view of just ongoing creation and co-creation, because we do participate in this stuff, and we have a plan, a blueprint for what our lives will be, and with whom and when, and all of that stuff before we're born. But it almost seems like when I first heard about like a cruel trick till you forget everything that you just set up when you're born. But I guess you could look at it as like the most exciting game. What you do you may stay a player on the board or not, or what someone else does might affect it. It's like all of these things, and regardless of good or bad, it's all gotta happen for whatever is projected at the end of the long game to happen. I think ultimately the reason why we have a black and white polar world is so that we can have a good versus evil situation, or even just a good and evil situation actually coexisting in the world. And if I understand things correctly, you want to be in the light side column. You don't want to be in the down in the dark sort of negative energy type situation. And this card is like the coming back from rock bottom and becoming happy, or becoming successful, or becoming whatever it is that was better or higher, lighter energy that you aspire to, or that you fell from, that you want to rise again to. I feel like it's definitely a card of redemption, of like a triumphant rebirth at the end of maybe a gnarly cycle, which is kind of what happens a lot here, but not exclusively. There are thank goodness, lots of good, positive, happy things that happen. So, okay, I guess I'm done. Thank you and good night.